I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. They should remove this lockdown because we can't continue having church online. Because somebody can just go and shut down internet and then we're stuck. Hi, IJ. Unfriendly network today. I know. Ndi Edwin, thank you for joining. Indiana, thank you for joining. I'm waiting for Patrick to join back. Waiting for Patrick to join back and then we'll continue. Please tell Patrick to rejoin. I've gone back live again. I had to cut off that one. My MTN, because this one is fooling around. Okay. Okay, it's a blessing in disguise, Abi. You wouldn't participate if it wasn't online. It's okay. All right, let me invite Patrick now. Hi, Duchess. Patrick is not here yet. Okay. When he comes up, I'll see. Hi, Duchess. Sorry about that. Jeda Cox Imaginations. Thank you for coming on board. Good to see you. We're just waiting for our guest to reconnect. You agree with Indiana, right? Okay, now. It's true, Osha. If it wasn't for internet, now Binia for come so to come gist or Lagos. But now we're joining from everywhere. Okay, yeah, has his own blessings in disguise. I'm waiting for Patrick, but we have been talking about how to break habits, and since I already took the time to talk about what to do to break the habits, I'll give you the pointers again that we gave last Tuesday for knowing that a habit is controlling you. One, if you have broken promises around that behavior, know that it's probably an addiction. What does that mean? You have a particular behavior that you have made many promises to yourself, to God, your spouse, your dog. I won't do this again, and you found yourself doing it again. It means that that habit is controlling you. Two, if you have failed attempts to change, you have tried to change the behavior, and you were still struggling and all of that, that means there's probably an addiction there. Three, if you have a sense of entitlement about any behavior, it's probably an addiction. What does that mean? You feel you are entitled. Let me give you a funny example. J. Bello, thank you for coming. Pato, thank you for coming. Now, I give you an example about entitlement. You know, they've been married for 17 years and you have been faithful for the 17 years except that one time. And the attitude he had was, I've been faithful for 17 years. I'm entitled to one act of cheating. So he's entitled to cheat because they have been faithful for 17 years. That is entitlement. Entitlement is a driver driving badly on the road and hitting your car, and before you even speak, it comes out of the car and starts cursing you out. That's entitlement. So if you have entitlement around any behavior, know that it is probably an addiction. Right? And then ineffective prayer is another pointer. Whenever you want to pray, something accuses you and strips your prayer of power, that's another pointer. And then lost opportunities, relationships, and finances. If you have lost opportunities because of that behavior, know that it is controlling you. And then negative consequences. You have suffered negative consequences because of the behavior. Know that it is an addiction. And then finally, your heart knows. You can deceive anybody, but you cannot deceive yourself. So Patrick is here, thank you for joining us. So Patrick is back here, and I was asking you, Patrick, you have put into practice the steps that one needs to put into practice to break a habit, and you successfully broke the habit. The question I was asking you was, how long ago was this that you started the process? I know that you have effectively broken the particular habit we're talking about, and it's been many years. So I want to ask you, how long ago did you implement the pointer to breaking habits?
Yes, like I said every day I implement those things you mentioned. But if we're talking about how long ago, I think this is about 14 to 15 years now.
Absolutely.
14 to 15 years now.
Are you comfortable to tell us, is Pastor Frank around you?
Yes, Pastor Frank is around me here.
He has to move. It's his phone that is giving the feedback.
So,
Allah Wilcox, thank you for joining. B Sparkles, thank you for joining. So, yes, you said it's about 14 years now since you implemented steps to breaking a habit. So I said, are you comfortable to tell us the particular habit?
Well, there were myriads of habits, but principally on the list was a sex addiction. You know,
Sex addiction.
I was
all right.
Yeah.
So the addiction you are talking about qualified as an addiction because those pointers were there: broken promises, failed attempts to change, entitlement, lost opportunities, negative consequences, ineffective prayer, and your heart knew that you were deceiving everybody, but you couldn't deceive yourself. All right.
Yes.
So you struggled with sexual addiction, and then you began to implement. Now, let me take the points one after the other. The one of brutal honesty, that's number one. To be able to break a habit, you have to come into the place of brutal honesty with yourself. How did you get to that point, Pastor Patrick?
That point is actually the hardest to come to. Hardest to come to, because you are enjoying whatever your addiction, whatever your habit was, so to say, in quotes, you feel you are enjoying it. So coming to a place where you want to agree with yourself that you need to change this habit because you see the negative consequences is a very difficult place. It's where people struggle the most, and it's where it takes the most time. But once you're able to come to that place where you're able to, confront that part of being honest with yourself that I really need to stop this habit because of the negative consequences, then the journey, I will say, becomes a little easier. Not very easy, but a little easier. But you must come to that place first of all. So it was the most place for me. It was destroying a lot of things in my life, but it was so difficult for me to agree that I needed to stop it. But immediately I was able to come to that place where, and actually just, I read a book about it, and discovered I needed to come to that place. And from there it was easy. It was a bit easier to start the journey of recovery.
Okay. So you had to come to the place where the decision was definite and final. I need to stop. I've had too many negative consequences. This has to stop. My relationships are falling apart. This has to stop. Doris Francis, thank you for joining. Uji, thank you for joining. All right. Now, that is one aspect of the brutal honesty with yourself. The other aspect of brutal honesty is where you stop lying to yourself and also stick with the plan. All right? Stop lying to yourself and stick with the plan. Break away from the rationalization. So, sticking with the plan, how hard was it at the beginning to stick with the plan?
Very, very, very hard. Now let me say this: it's going to be almost impossible to be able to enter that second step by yourself on your own. You will need the assistance of a professional to help you in that second step. Okay. Now, even with the help of the professional, it's very difficult because your mind has become a very slippery place. Your mind is now very slippery. So going back to what you used to do, and like we said, it's now a habit. So it's very easy. Oh. It's a slippery place. It's a slippery place. But so you need the help of someone that will help guide you, take you by the hand, and lead you down that path. That's basically what I was able to do. Then I was able to achieve that with the help of someone.
I need to plead with everybody that I need to step away from the camera for a second because I don't know what is interfering with your sound. So let me just come to where you are and let's check something. Just give me a minute.
I'm here. No network.
Oh, I don't. Why is it?
It's not that strong.
Are you using 180?
It's not strong.
What is happening? I don't understand. We're too near each other.
Let me use it. My hand.
Even like that. Okay. Sorry.
Yes. Maybe.
Yeah.
This works.
I'm back. Okay, so we are in the same office. We work together actually, and
No.
yes, it is feedback definitely. That's why I've asked him to move. He's going to another office so that.
How's the sound now?
Okay, Patrick. Okay, sound is better.
Aha, maybe like I'm using an earpiece now, so I'm blocking out.
Mr. Bello just said if you have a headpiece, it will help. So thank God that has helped the sound. So carry on. You were saying that now you're okay. You were saying that the second part of being brutally honest means that somebody has to hold your hand and help you through the journey. And that will bring us to the place of the power up principle that we talked about as one of the ways to deal with bad habits, to let another person help you. How hard is that? How hard is accountability, and how hard is it to allow somebody to help you?
Initially, accountability is very difficult, and initially having somebody to help you is actually also very difficult, because these are hard over years for quite a long time, and to a large extent, these are habits that are very shameful to say. So, being able to share with somebody else, it's now a matter. I mean, it's a major issue.
Yeah. So being able to talk to another person about it is a matter, is a big issue, because it's a simple. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a big issue.
Okay. When you decided to, like, okay, I'm going to engage the process, and you started, can you tell me or tell us some of the difficulties you had in opening up to another person?
That was also very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. But one of the things I encountered was, I had the issue of the shame. I was feeling so ashamed of myself. But the person I was able to open up to was able to help me not to be too ashamed of myself. I don't know how to say it, but that's the only way I can say it now. So yeah, that's also very important with whomever you want to start this recovery journey. Or be somebody that is a professional.
Okay.
So I would say I was professionally treated. So that helped. Yes, that helped me in being able to be open and to hard.
So now one of the things I said
with the person.
Okay, one of the things I said was that there are two paths to humility. You either humble yourself before the mighty hand of God and then get into the place of recovery, or you are humiliated by circumstances into seeking recovery. Which of them was obtainable for you? Was it an event that humiliated you into recovery, or you decided to humble yourself under the mighty hand of God?
No, I think in my case, I decided to humble myself in the mighty hand of God. But somewhere, it's a bit of the two, because you come to your weak end. Everything was no longer working for me. Everything I put my hands to do was no longer working. I was frustrated.
That's a negative consequence right there. That's a negative consequence right there. Okay, so those of you who were there last week, Tuesday and Thursday, you can see all the threads of the things we talked about interwoven here in his testimony. First, you are seeing some of the pointers that he had to walk to be able to get out of that place of addiction. So nothing was working well anymore. Relationships were breaking down, finances were breaking down, opportunities were being lost, and then you knew you had to do this thing. But then you decided, instead of waiting for an incident or an event, maybe police will arrest you soliciting maybe a prostitute, or you are in the wrong place at the wrong time, you decided, no, let me deal with this. But honestly, I would say that that's the mercy of God. That is the mercy of God.
Yes.
That's the mercy of God. Because many people have terrible negative consequences, but their hearts are so deceived. They do not turn and face the grace of God and take the steps they need to change, number one. Dr. Stephanie, thank you for joining. But on the other hand, it's not just that they cannot turn and face God and take his mercy. Enoch, thank you for joining. It's also that they do not even know what to do. Many people are struggling.
Yes.
They don't know what to do, where to go. All right. In looking at all the different points that you must implement to break free, there is one called forgive others and yourself. Did you have to do any forgiving on your part? If yes, who did you have to forgive?
Yeah, I had to do that. That was a major aspect of it, and it was a very difficult aspect of it also. I needed to forgive my father. Yeah, because from the work of recovery, I discovered that I was seriously wounded by my father, and I could not come to a place where I could forgive him. In fact, I got to discover that partly the reason why I said I wanted all females when I marry, I want to give her to just girls, and I don't want to give her to a boy, was because I just felt I was a boy to my father, and he treated me so badly. So, yes, that part of why I just wanted to.
And amazingly, you have only female children. God heard your prayer. He didn't give you a boy. He gave you all girls. Wow. No. Let me stop you there, Patrick. Do you see the power of prayer and the power of desire? Do you see the grace of God to grant us our heart's desire? For reasons best known to Patrick, he said, I don't want a male child because my father didn't do well with me as a male child. I want only females. And truly, his children are all girls. Amazing. Now, somebody will be looking at you from far and say, yeah, this man no born boy. God don't give a boy. And he will not know that it is you that said, I don't want boy. Leave me with girl. You know, amazing. I mean, wow. So we can ask God for anything. Yes. We can pray to God about anything. We can make our desires known. And God is gracious enough to do exactly as we are. Okay, so carry on.
So my father was the major block, if I will use the word. It was a major blockage for me. I couldn't come to forgive him. I felt he did those things to me. Why will he do those things he did to me? Why will he do that? So the difficult aspect for me in that step of forgiving. It took me a long while to be able to come to the place of forgiving my father. And I won't lie, even up to recent year, I still saw layers of forgiveness that I had towards him that I needed to deal with. But the truth was, at every time I dealt with any of those layers, it brings me further to a place of better recovery. Better to manage myself and all that. So that was.
Let me interrupt you, Patrick, because of what you said about layers now. You have been, Victor, thank you for joining. You have been in recovery for 14 years.
Yes.
One would expect that after 14 years, the journey should be over. But you're saying now that just a few weeks ago, you had to deal with another layer.
Yes.
So any talk to somebody who is struggling and wondering, why am I not still free up to now? Is this journey a sprint or a marathon?
This journey is a journey for life.
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon. It's a journey for life. It's not a sprint at all. It's not a sprint at all.
So
And the
every
better
time,
you
as
come,
long as you stay with the process, you will continue to uncover layers that need healing, layers that need changing.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
So,
all right.
So and,
then
yes, and that,
the power of go on. I didn't hear that.
Yes, I was going to say that that's something you need to come to, in agreement with. You need to know that it's a journey and it's going to take, it's a marathon.
Okay.
So having that, recognizing that fact is really important also.
Okay, so now let me look at the point of the power of disclosure.
Wow.
When you had to disclose, how hard was it? When you had to open up and tell somebody else, I am a sex addict, I am struggling, and I've been a Christian for many years, I've been a leader in church for many years, but this struggle is existing pari passu, if you like, with my faith. When you had to open up, tell me the event, or tell us how the event of opening up affected you, the struggle to even do it. Let's hear it.
Yes, that aspect of opening up and telling somebody about it, I will want to equate it to like an out of the body experience. Because coming to agreeing with yourself that you are this and you are that, and that's even first of all the first journey, then coming to be able to tell somebody outside you that you are this and you are that. It's like I said, it's like an out of the body experience. It's like, yes, you are doing it, but you are not the person doing it. Something like that. That was how it happened for me. But immediately I was able to open up and share it with someone. There was a physical burden. I'm telling you this, and I'm telling everybody listening to this. There was a physical burden that was literally lifted off my shoulder. It was as if something was on my shoulder, in my back next to my shoulders, and the thing was lifted away. So I felt weightlessness for a period of time. I felt I was walking in the air. And I don't know how best to explain it, but that's the only way I can explain it. But that body
was lifted. One of the things I heard you say at the beginning of your recovery is that you had struggled so bad, and God had spoken to you and said to you, Patrick, deal with this thing, or else you would die and you would go to hell. And you told God, let me die, let me go to hell, but I can't do anything about this thing. I have tried to break from this sexual addiction. I have not been able, I've done everything. So let me just stay with it and die and go to hell. That was the depth and the power of the struggle.
Yes.
Now, at this point, Patrick, you were a pastor.
Yes, I was.
Did being a pastor immune you to the struggle, or immunize you from struggle?
Not at all, man. Not at all. Yeah.
So you were a pastor and you were struggling.
Yes, I was a pastor and I was struggling. Yes.
Now, I had a session with Pastor Frank Abu a few days ago, and we talked about the root of addiction. And one of those, the roots we said was society, trauma, family dysfunction, and ingratitude. Now, many people who are pastors today did not know they'll be pastors as adults. Yeah. They became pastors, maybe God called them and something like that. But as a child, which is where most of the problems begin from, if these factors were present, influential society, trauma, personal trauma, family dysfunction, if they were present in the life of a person growing up, becoming a pastor will not change what had happened in the past. The
Not
only
at all.
thing that will change it is knowing what has happened to you and then taking deliberate steps to deal with those things. Closing certain
Exactly.
doors that need to be closed, dealing with woundedness in your soul. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about the critical roles that fathers play in creating the atmosphere for their children becoming addicts. We need to look at father wounding and teach people so that fathers will become aware how critical their relationship with their children is. And most of the young people they bring to our rehab center have issues with daddy. And you just had Patrick now. The moment I said to Patrick, who did you need to forgive? He said, my dad. Now, we may not have the time or opportunity to hear some of the things that Patrick's dad did to him when he was growing, but just know that. Now, another pointer in breaking addiction is control behavior, not emotions. Now, emotions are fickle. Now, you can feel good. The next minute, somebody can bring you one bad piece of news, your emotions go down. So you cannot live your life based on emotions. It is emotions that drive you to the habit. It is emotions that pull you to the habit. So you must now not struggle to control emotions, but control behavior. And the way we do that, we talked about the 5 commandments. Recovery, we don't talk about 10 commandments, we talk about 5 commandments. Read, pray, call, go for meetings, and pray again at the end of the day. Tell us how that process was for you and for how long you religiously followed it until you came to the place of relative freedom.
Yes, that became like part and parcel of my life. It became what I needed to do every day when I wake up, following those steps. But before I say that, I would like to say this. There's actually during my time when I was still very active with my addiction, my habits. Initially it was when I'm feeling bad. I use those habits and those addiction, those practices to medicate my feeling bad.
Okay.
So, and that will be under habits now. No, under emotion.
Okay,
Good.
yeah.
Yes, under emotion. So, but I now discovered that later, even when I'm feeling good, I still want to indulge in those habits. So you rightly said it. If we decide to concentrate on just, making sure our behavior, our
feelings,
emotions are fed, our feelings are fed, we're going to really lose it. So, and yes, when I was now told that I needed to begin to develop new habits, new behavior, and it involved this pray, call someone, go for meetings, and yes, go to meetings. It was very difficult. Read material. It was very difficult, very, very difficult, because you needed to get up to do.
Absolutely.
To infuse those into my lifestyle, my living.
Okay.
It was a big help. It was a big.
It was a bit difficult. Okay, let me go to the 6th one. Measure me, please. Have you ever undergone a polygraph test to check if you're staying true to your?
Maybe not.
Or you had other means. You had other means
Yes.
of measuring yourself and your progress. Okay.
Yes.
So how did you measure yourself and how did you measure your recovery?
Okay, personally speaking, one of the ways I measured my recovery, I'm going to talk about personally speaking and, of course, the other aspect. The personal way I was able to measure my recovery was that the nightmares stopped. I virtually see terrible creatures in my dreams. My dreams are usually they were terror-based. I'm tormented. Normally, when my nightmares, I will wake up in the middle of the night. My wife will say, "What's wrong with me?" I will not be able to tell her what kind of dream I was doing. I usually literally see creatures, demonic creatures, like what we call the Juju Calabar faces. I used to see those in my dreams. So one of the ways I knew something was beginning to happen to me was I stopped having nightmares. I stopped having those terrible. But I myself, if the only, in fact, if that's just what I'm able to achieve with recovery, glory be to God. Because I can't explain to anybody out there. You can't sleep if you're being terrorized. The Bible says the terror that there are terrors and they terrorize you at night. So that was one of the ones I used in measuring my. But the other aspect also was I became accountable, and today I am accountable. I became accountable to a professional that at every time I make sure if anything goes out of place, out of the normal, I immediately give an account of what has gone out of. Even when I'm not presently in the same city with that person, we communicate by text messages and so on. So that was one of the aspects I used.
Very, very good. All right, the final one is spank the dog. I think I will end with that one. The spank the dog principle. Let me quickly educate people who joined us who do not know. Elzabad, thank you for joining. Ibiten, Ibi, thank you for joining. I saw Faith Pollitt earlier. Thank you for joining. All right. Now, the spank the dog principle is the retraining of the brain. Every addiction, every bad habit, feel the beats couture. Thank you for joining. Every bad habit is a training of the brain. And to break the habit, you have to untrain the brain and retrain in a different direction. So to do that, there was a man called Pavlov. Pavlov did an experiment with a puppy and a bell. Every time he rang the bell, he will feed the puppy. Ring the bell, feed the dog. Ring the bell, feed the dog. After a while, the moment the dog heard the sound of a bell, saliva started pouring from the mouth because he was expecting food. Then the man switched the experiment. Ring the bell, slap the dog. Ring the bell, kick the dog. Ring the bell, inflict pain on the dog. And the dog now, the moment he heard the sound of a bell, he began to run away because he knew that pain was coming. So it's the same bell, but the stimulus had been changed. So the dog now, after training the brain in one direction with pleasure, he used pain to retrain the brain. Now, the reason why you go back to that habit over and over is because your brain associates that habit with pleasure. When you drain an alcoholic drinks alcohol, all his problems are solved. When a drug addict smokes cocaine, the world is a perfect place at that time. So your brain associates the behavior with pleasure. When you are a masturbation addict or a fornicator or an anger addict or a shopaholic or a gambling addict, once you engage the behavior, Okuma, thank you for joining. I am Unique Story, thank you for joining. Once you engage the behavior, pleasure floods your body. So your brain is a computer and your brain is designed for pleasure. God designed us for pleasure. So anything that brings pleasure, your brain will take the memory and store it. The next time you're under tension, your brain will say to you, you remember the last time when you smoked that cigar, when you shopped, you felt better. When you gambled, you felt better. Go and do it again. So you go back and engage the behavior. That's the training of the brain in that direction. So the only way to begin to break down the structure of that habit in your life is to retrain the brain to associate the same behavior with pain, just like the dog. So that introduces the concept of spanking the dog. Patrick, tell me what you had to do to retrain your brain, to be free from sexual addiction.
Yes, what I had to do was I got a rubber band. Of course, I was told this. I got a rubber band from my coach.
Okay.
Yes, and I was asked to put exactly like this. Yes, like
so
this.
So be saying it, I'll be practicalizing it for them.
Yes, I was also told to get different colors so that I can match with the shirt or the color of what I'm wearing.
Color, right?
So I was asked to put it on my wrist. Okay. So you wear it on. Yes.
Let me move my wrist. Okay.
And I was told that at any time at any time my brain wants to bring about the thoughts of, let's say, masturbation, let's say pornography or whatever, I should pull the rubber band as further away as I can from my wrist. So help me pull that rubber band.
Whatever, Patrick, whatever. You want me to slap myself, right?
I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this. Then you release the rubber band suddenly so that it will, yes.
Ow. Ow. Okay.
So I was told to do that at any time I want to think about masturbation, I want to think about watching porn and whatever, indulging in sexual, or basically anything that will bring about orgasm. I'm supposed to pull the rubber band and snap it. Yes, and then when I started doing that, it was like music.
Now, this number one point in breaking a bad habit is brutal honesty with self. Tell me about brutal honesty and the rubber band.
The thing with the rubber band was when I started with that pulling of that rubber band, it was like music. It was ta 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 stars, stars, ta 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 stars, stars. Like
that's how fast your brain was asking for masturbation or porn.
That's when I even realized that that's how quick my brain was, triggered towards porn, towards masturbation, and all that. I never knew it was that frequent and that quick and that bad. So it was like a rubber. It was like music. I was drawing it almost like per second, and of course, because it began to make my wrist become very red. The blood, is it a blood clot or so, began to form around my wrist, and I saw it and I'm like, wow, this is really terrible. But I needed to continue doing it because I discovered that at any time,
the brutal honesty had to come into play here.
Yes.
If your brain told you to masturbate 40 times, you had to be brutally honest with yourself to pull the rubber band 40 times in a day.
That's right.
If your brain said, go and watch porn 20 times in a day, you were tempted. The brutal honesty meant you had to pull this rubber band 20 times in one day.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell me what began to happen to you.
I like I said, the first few days it was so frequent and so fast. But I discovered also that this was later. This discovery was made later. That it gradually began to reduce the time I draw the rubber band. Yeah, the number of times it began to reduce in frequency. It reduced to a noticeable frequency for me. Like maybe like after the first 1 week, that's about the first 7 days. And I told myself, I said, wow, it seems I am slacking in this thing. I'm no longer being brutally honest with myself. I'm no longer drawing this rubber band as I'm supposed to. But I now stopped and I said, wait a minute. It simply means that I am no longer thinking about indulging in any of those habits, the masturbation, the porn, and any of those habits as frequent as I was thinking it before. Because I was drawing it as immediately the thought comes into my head, I draw the rubber band, and the pain makes the thought to run away, so to say. So yes, it now means that I was no longer thinking about those things.
Okay, I don't know what's happening with Patrick's network, but this is where we'll probably draw the curtain today. If you are struggling, if you know anyone struggling, please check, help them, use the rubber band and help them retrain them. Join us again. All right, I'll see you, Kumar, Ima, Unique Story, Gubemi, Akikupam, all of you. Thank you for joining. See you again.